Hello, today we're going to be talking about editing for things such as your MLA citations and your formatting, some final polishing for your essay. So right here we have a sample essay. I just want to point out a few things with the formatting. This is nothing new, but just want to reiterate things you should be checking for. You want to have your name, my name, course, and date in this formatting, then a title, centered, and then start your essay. This should be double space, Times New Roman, size 12, all that. Also, you'll have your last name and page number up in the header so that when you go to the second page, it continues and so forth. Okay. Then you'll have all of your in-text citations, which I'll go over again in just a minute. And you'll notice when you get to the end of the essay, the works cited page is not right there. The works cited page should start at the very top of the next empty page. Then you'll have your citations in alphabetical order with a hanging indent. So I would start by checking those things, okay? The next thing that you want to check with your formatting is whether or not every single source is actually cited in your essay. The easiest way to do this is by searching. If you hit Control and F, you'll get a navigation feature. And what I would recommend doing is typing in the very first word of your citation, because that is what your in-text citation needs to be based on, whether it's an author's last name or a title. It depends on what the beginning of the citation is. Like I said, I'll look at some others with you in a moment. So I would type in Abrahams, and as you can see, this does not appear anywhere in the essay. So technically, this is not being cited correctly. Now, is this being cited at all? You might check and look for your own sources, and maybe I accidentally did it based on ecology, the publication title. No, that's not showing up. How about bioluminescence? So I'm using the word in this essay. I'm not citing that source in particular. So right now, that's a problem. So what I would want to do as the writer is go in and fix it and make sure Abrams and Townsend, my two authors, show up. Next one is algae. So this should be a title. So that means it should be in quotation marks. And what do you know? It is cited correctly in the parentheses. So that source is fine. I would then go through every single source and make sure that I'm actually citing my sources in the essay, regardless of whether the citations are perfect. If I'm not even citing it, that's a major concern. So that would be the next thing I would look at. Finally, you want to actually check the quality of the citation. So I'm going to show you a few other ones that are a little more varied, but the reason I have these is because it covers just about every type of source for an example. So remember at the top, works cited. Then you have your citations alphabetical order, like I mentioned before. You'll notice I have this hanging indent. Now, what you want to do to get this, because you could just skip each line, but that is more complicated than the easy way. Okay, so let me go back to not having a hanging indent. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's say I type all my citations, one on each line. If I then highlight all of them, there are multiple ways to do this, but the easiest way that a colleague taught me only a year ago, I wish I knew 10 years ago, is Control T. Control T will then give you a hanging indent. Okay? So the formatting on the page looks good. I've got an alphabetical order, whether it be a title or an author's name. Okay? And I've got my hanging indent ready to go, as I mentioned. So now I can start looking at, do I have the formatting correct? So here's one source, a website. No author, so the first thing I start with is the title. Notice the capitalization, all the important words capitalized. It's an article title, so it goes in quotation marks with a period inside the quotation marks. Then the web address, or the web title, excuse me, of the website, WebMD in italics, comma, then the web address without the HTTP. Then a period at the end, that's my citation. From an online newspaper, I would have, in this case, since I have an author, author's name, last comma first, title of the article in quotation marks, then the publication title, the website title, same thing, comma, date, Notice the formatting with the abbreviated month, comma, then the web address again. If I have a book, it might look something like this. Author, title in italics, including the subtitle, then the publishing firm, comma, the year of publication. I have a few other examples here that if you wanted to pause and look at, that would be helpful. Here is a source from a database. You'll notice it says et al. If you'll recall, that means and others. If I have two authors, like here, Morello Carroll and Ruth English, I put both, but I reverse the first name. Once I have 3 or more authors, whether 3 or 100, anywhere in between and up, then I do only one author, comma, et al., period. Then I have the article title, History of Norway, format as before. Then we have a few more items. So italicized publication title, because this is a journal, academic journal. Then in this case, we have a volume number, an issue number, a year, pages, period. And then the database that I use, JSTOR in italics, comma, then the web link. A lot of the databases do that for you, as we mentioned before, that you can come up with that and then you may just need to tweak it slightly. So you don't have to start from scratch, which is helpful. But you'll notice that I both am citing where it's from, but then also the database that I use. This is also the way to indicate that you have library sources for your papers, okay? So once again, this is not new, but I'm just helping you reiterate certain things. Then we look at a few others that are similar. I'll scroll through so you can see them all if you need to find a model for your own sources. Then interviews, remember their name of who you interviewed, type of interview, then the date. And here's another one from a database at the end by Smith and Jones, okay? So those are the works cited page entries. I would definitely make sure those are as clean as possible and as strong as possible. And then finally, the in-text citations. So I'm gonna just show you some disembodied ones as models. Obviously, these would be integrated with introduce, cite, explain, the ICE method in your essay. But here's some examples of how those look. If we are quoting or paraphrasing a piece of information from a source in the sentence, but we do not say the author's name, then they must go in the parentheses. Since this is 2 authors, Smith and Jones, I put both in that formatting. And since there are page numbers, I put those as well in the parentheses, period at the end. Another few examples of how these might look for an et al. Source would look like this. If it's just an author with no page number, it would look like this. And if it's a title, remember that we didn't have an author, so I'll go back to the athlete's foot one. I can use a shortened version of the title, since that's the first thing that shows up. I use the title, and a shortened version is fine. Athletes would indicate which source we're looking for in our alphabetical list. Always use the first word, or words. And I put in quotation marks to indicate that it's a title in my parentheses, just like the others. Here's a book with a page number, etc. But also remember, we can introduce that material in the sentence, which is usually preferred for our ICE method. So Krishnamurthy says, comma, and what she says, Larson et al. Say, since it's plural. Or if it's an article title, in the article, Athlete's Foot Topic Overview, it says, etc. Gladwell calls the game incredible, etc. You know, it can be part of the sentence. And then there are times, this is not entirely common, but it does happen at times where you are quoting somebody in a different source. So for instance, in this book by Gladwell, he quotes Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream in this case. So there's a couple of ways to do this. One, if we want to put the author's name of who originally said it, which we need, we can put it here, and then we can put QTD, as in quoted, in Gladwell 298, then I have my page number. A more easy way for your reader to process, I believe, is more something like this. You know, King said, I have a dream, but then the citation of the book you used. So it's clear that King is the one who said it. Gladwell's the one who wrote it in the book you read. And then here's something just from Gladwell himself that's not from somebody else that he's quoting. It's just his own words. But then you can give even more detail here, right? Gladwell quotes Dr. King's famous words, I have a dream. Then all I would need is the page number, okay? So depending on your source, your citations might look, you know, slightly different, but they're still following this basic structure. So once again, big things to do for editing of formatting would be to make sure that your Heading, title, font, header with page number and last, or the page number and the last name are all clear. Make sure your works cited page is nice and formatted. This adds ethos right off the bat for your reader. And finally, check those in-text citations to make sure you're integrating your research effectively.